Testing.
Sounds good.
I now call the August 16, 2023 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting to order. Item 2, public hearing, public comment. Citizens who desire to address the city council, board and or commission with regard to matters on the agenda will be read and or received at this time. Members of the public desiring to make comments during this portion of the meeting will be allowed to submit their comments as outlined above to the office of the city secretary, citysec@sugarlandtx.gov. Written, emailed comments and or requests to participate during this portion of the meeting must be received by 3 p.m. Wednesday, August 16, 2023. The City of Sugar Land reserves the right to remove any written, emailed comments deemed inappropriate as outlined on the agenda and or not related to matters posted on the agenda. Comments or discussion by the city council, board, and or commission members will only be made at the time the subject is scheduled for consideration. Has anyone submitted public comments? Okay, we're on to item 3, minutes, consideration of and action on the minutes of the July 19, 2023 meeting. Does anyone have any corrections? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Mr. James. Can I have a second?
I second.
I have a second from Mr. Morton. Can we have a vote, please? And the minutes are unanimously approved. On to item number 4, public hearing. Item 4A, public hearing, receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard regarding a proposed special exception to the rear yard setback for 523 Brook Street, Lot 5, Block 1, Belknap subdivision, Section 2, in the restricted single-family residential R-1R zoning district.
Good evening. This address may look familiar. They were here previously for a special exception to the R1R rear setback requirements back in March. They were approved, but the applicant is back because they submitted their building permit applications and the elevation and site plan were slightly different than what was conditionally approved by your approval back in March. So again, this property was platted in 1950 as part of Belknap subdivision section 2 and was later annexed into the city in 1982 and was subsequently rezoned to the R1R zoning district. And the applicant is again requesting a rear yard special exception for a new residence. So a little case overview. The recorded plat established a 5-foot rear yard setback via the utility easement along the rear property line. The R1R zoning district requires a 30-foot rear yard setback, and the proposed new home will align with that platted restriction and will be located approximately 10 feet away from the rear property line, rather than the previously approved special exception was for 12.5 feet away from the rear property line. So it's still meeting that platted restriction. It's just slightly closer to that rear property line. And so the special exception would relieve that 30-foot R1R rear yard setback requirement and allow the new home to be constructed as proposed. So this is the previously approved site plan. As you can see, the R1R zoning district rear yard setback requirement is that red line. The blue line is where they had previously requested the special exception for, and the yellow line indicates the utility easement, that 5-foot utility easement. And this is the new site plan that they are proposing for their home. Again, the red line is the rear yard setback. The green line is that new 10-foot requested setback. And the yellow line, again, is that 5-foot utility easement. The reason for the request, both the first one and the second one, is in order to save those large oak trees. They're going to wrap the home around it and have a little outdoor area. Here are photos of the trees. As you can see, they are very large. I believe they're about 60 inches in caliper. And these are the new proposed exterior elevations. They are only slightly different than the last ones. I think there was just like a slight material change, and the patio in the middle is slightly larger now because that rear setback is shifting. Here is an aerial view of the property. Looking to the neighborhood and analyzing the other homes in the area, it appears to be architecturally compatible with the neighborhood. It should be noted that there is no HOA for this area or an architectural review committee. So when evaluating whether or not it's compatible, we're really looking at if it meets the other setbacks in the area are similar, and if it meets our standard zoning requirements. Approximately 5 homes nearby do not meet that 30-foot rear yard setback, and there are 2 similarly approved special exceptions in the area. Looking at the special exception criteria, for the first 3, it meets all of them. It was platted prior to annexation. The recorded restrictions are less restrictive than the setback per zoning, and the special exception would not be less restrictive than the recorded restriction. The 4th criteria is it detrimental to public welfare or injurious to the neighborhood. Staff does not see any apparent issues. All the public hearing notification requirements were met. Mailers were sent to property owners within 200 feet. The notification was published in the newspaper and on the city's website, as well as a courtesy public hearing notice sign was placed in the property along Brook Street. And staff has received 1 general phone inquiry just asking about what exactly the request was. And then we did receive 1 phone call of a person who is in opposition to the special exception process, not necessarily to this request. And so with that, staff is recommending approval of the special exception with the condition that the new residence is constructed in accordance with the attached site plan and elevations.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
They are.
Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing. Citizens who desire to address the board with regard to matters pertaining to the public hearing will be received at this time. Is there anyone who wants to
No.
speak? No? Okay. And then, so we'll close the public hearing. And we will now move forward with consideration of an action on a proposed special exception to the rear yard setback for 523 Brook Street, Lot 5, Block 1, Belknap subdivision, Section 2 in the restricted single-family residential R-1R zoning district. The first criteria, the latest recorded plat of the property was approved prior to being annexed into the city. Do we agree that the plat was recorded prior to being annexed?
Yes.
Okay. Second criteria, the latest recorded plat or other recorded restriction for the property establishes a setback or other regulation that results in a setback that is less restrictive than the setback required by the City of Sugar Land Development Code, Chapter 2. Do we agree that the recorded restrictions are less restrictive than those established by the City of Sugar Land Development Code?
Yeah, I just had a general question of clarification. Should I just wait to the end for that, or would it be best to do that now?
I think so when we do the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
All right, third criteria, granting the special exception will not establish a setback that is less restrictive than the setback established by the latest approved plat or other recorded restriction. Do we agree that the proposed special exception is not less restrictive than the recorded restrictions?
Yes.
Okay. Fourth criteria, granting the special exception will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in the district or neighborhood in which the property is located. Does the board have any questions or comments?
Yes, I have one, please.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. James.
So just to clarify, so this patio area, what, I guess it looks like that was extended and that's another 2.5 feet. What drove that extension from the first time when it was drawn up?
I'll let the applicant speak to that.
Oh, I think we need to have him sworn in. Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth in these proceedings under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
2 things. One, the original submission was a draft. It was based on cut and paste from David Weekly, who's our contractor. And secondly, moving into the back, we'll move the rooms further from the tree.
Mhm.
So it'll give about 2.5 more feet away from the last tree that we have.
Okay. Yeah, it seemed like that's what happened. So I guess was trying to understand what was causing that. And I guess where I'm going with that question is, was there something that you discovered that drove that? And is there a chance that that could further discovery cause you to push it even further back? And should we, just could this happen again? I guess where I'm going, and if it could, is there something we should do to maybe allow a little more movement in case something comes up, or would we just have to review that on a case by case basis? I'm just trying to understand the.
So
sequence where
actually,
that could go.
when we submitted the first one, my request was already for 10-foot setback. However, the plot that was drawn showed the 12'6", and that
Okay.
was the one that was approved. But the verbiage on the letter, if you go back, requested for a 10-foot setback. So it was the original request, except the drawing did not reflect that.
Okay, so there's no third party's gonna come in and say, oh, you're still too close.
No,
Therefore, you gotta keep moving.
Yeah, no discovery, nothing we found in the ground, nothing we found,
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just like to
Okay.
comment, procedurally speaking, you just need to consider what's actually before you. If something was to happen again, it would come back before you at that time.
Okay, so, well, I guess where it's going, if there was a risk of it happening again, would it be worth us considering approving even more? Or would you be best, I guess, helping with procedure, or we just take it one step at a time?
I would just take it strictly based on the criteria and the
Thank you.
information that is before you today.
No further
And-
questions. Thank you.
Sir, can you state your name and address for the record?
My name's Jose Dumlao. My address now is 4911 Plantation Colony Drive, Sugar Land, Texas, 77478.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, one last question. So
Yeah.
we approved this back in what, May or March? So what was the approval before and then what was the deviation now? So we're changing it to a 10-foot setback now?
Yes,
And what was it before?
it was 12 and a half feet.
Okay, so we're just talking about 2.5 feet. And then the elevation also changed slightly as well?
Yes, but it wasn't anything in height or anything like that. It was just materials.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one additional question.
Yes.
Jessica, what was the nature once again of the objection received by telephone?
So the person who was objecting, they were objecting to the special exception process. They believe that it was varying from the zoning standards, not necessarily what the actual special exception process is. It was not pertinent to the actual case. They just saw the sign.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Staff has examined the proposed special exception for 3 key aspects. Number 1, public safety review. There does not appear to be any public safety issues associated with this request. Staff has not identified safety concerns as a result of the new house. Rear yard setback comparison. The proposed rear yard setback of the new house appears to be generally compatible with the neighborhood based on an analysis of the surrounding area. Approximately 5 homes within the immediate area do not meet the rear yard setback requirement of 30 feet. There are 2 approved similar special exceptions in the immediate area. The proposed house is in compliance with the recorded restrictions. Number 3, general architectural. The proposed house appears to be architecturally compatible with the existing single-family residence and neighborhood. Can I please have a motion for approval or denial of the special exception?
I move that the special exception to the rear yard setback requirements in the restricted single-family residential R1R district for the property located at 523 Brook Street, Lot 5, Block 1, Belknap subdivision, Section 2, be granted with the condition that the new residence is constructed in accordance with attached site plan and elevations.
I have a motion from Mr. James. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a second from Mr. Butler. Can we have a vote, please? Special exception passes unanimously. Item 4B, public hearing, receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard regarding a proposed special exception to the rear yard setback for 75 Hessenford Street, Lot 3, Block 6, Sweetwater, Section 12, replat in the restricted single-family residential R-1R zoning district.
Hello again. So this second case is also a special exception request to the R1R rear setback requirements. This property was platted in 1989 as part of Sweetwater Section 12 replat. It was annexed into the city in 1997 and subsequently rezoned R1R zoning. The request is for the rear yard setback for a patio cover that's attached to the rear of the home. So the recorded plat established an 8-foot rear yard setback via the utility easement. Again, the R1R zoning district requires a 30-foot rear yard setback. The proposed patio cover will align with that platted restriction and will be located approximately 9 feet away from that rear property line. And it will project approximately 21 feet into that rear yard setback per the R1R zoning district. The special exception would relieve that 30-foot setback and allow the patio cover to be constructed as proposed. So here is the site plan that was submitted. As you can see, the red line shows the utility easement, and the proposed patio cover will project approximately 21 feet. The exact measurement is 8 feet, 10 inches. So it's about 10 inches off that utility easement. And here are the elevations that were provided. I do want to go back to the site plan and point out that on there, it does show that the eave overhangs into that aerial easement, but that is no issue. So this is an aerial of the property. For an aerial neighborhood analysis, it appears to be architecturally compatible with the neighborhood. Approximately 4 nearby homes do not meet that R1R required 30-foot setback. And there is 1 approved special exception in the nearby vicinity. For the special exception criteria, it meets the first 3. It was plotted prior to annexation. The recorded restrictions are not less restrictive than the setback per zoning. And the special exception is not less restrictive than that recorded restriction. For the 4th criteria, is it detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the neighborhood? Again, staff does not see any apparent issues. For the public hearing notification requirements, mailers were sent to property owners within 200 feet. A notification was posted in the newspaper as well as on the city's website, and a courtesy sign was placed on the property. No inquiries have been received at this time, and staff is not aware of any opposition to this case. With that, staff is recommending approval of the special exception with the condition that the patio cover is constructed in accordance with the attached site plan and elevations.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Citizens who desire to address the board with regard to matters pertaining to the public hearing will be received at this time. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? No? Okay, then I will close the public hearing. And we will now move forward with consideration of and action on a proposed special exception to the rear yard setback for 75 Hessenford Street, Lot 3, Block 6, Sweetwater, Section 12 replat in the restricted single-family residential R-1R zoning district. First criteria, the latest recorded plat of the property was approved prior to being annexed into the city. Do we agree that the plat was recorded prior to being annexed? Yes. Okay. Second criteria, the latest recorded plat or other recorded restriction for the property establishes a setback or other regulation that results in a setback that is less restrictive than the setback required by the City of Sugar Land Development Code, Chapter 2. Do we agree that the recorded restrictions are less restrictive than those established by the City of Sugar Land Development Code?
Yes.
Okay. Criteria 3, granting the special exception will not establish a setback that is less restrictive than the setback established by the latest approved plat or other recorded restriction. Do we agree that the proposed special exception is not less restrictive than the recorded restrictions? Okay. Fourth criteria, granting the special exception will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in the district or neighborhood in which the property is located. Does the board have any questions or comments? No.
I have one question. Can you explain again? You said the eaves are going to hang over the.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not the actual structure itself, it's the eave, which we do allow to encroach 24 inches into typical setbacks. But the aerial setback is not a normal setback as required by zoning. It is more for poles, and it kind of goes sideways and up around the pole. So there's no issue with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, staff has examined the proposed special exception for 3 key aspects. Number 1, public safety review. There does not appear to be any public safety issues associated with this request. Staff has not identified safety concerns as a result of the patio cover. Number 2, rear yard setback comparison. The proposed addition appears to be generally compatible with the neighborhood based on an analysis of the surrounding area. Approximately 4 homes within the immediate area do not meet the rear yard setback requirement of 30 feet. There is one approved similar special exception in the immediate area. The proposed addition is in compliance with the recorded restrictions. Number 3, general architectural. The proposed addition appears to be architecturally compatible with the existing single-family residence and neighborhood. There are no additional comments. I'd ask for a motion to approve or deny this special exception.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that the special exception to the rear yard setback requirements in the restricted single-family residential R1R district for the property located at 75 Hessenford Street, Lot 3, Block 6, Sweetwater, Section 12 replat be granted with the condition that the patio cover is constructed in accordance with the attached site plan and elevations.
We have a motion from Mr. Morton. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Betcher. Let's take a vote. Special exception is approved unanimously. Okay. Item 4C, public hearing, receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard regarding a proposed special exception to the rear yard setback for 24 Grand Manor, Lot 2, Block 2, Sweetwater Estates, Section 1, in the Estate Single Family Residential R-1E zoning district.
Good evening. So this is the first time in a while that we've looked at the R1E zoning, but it is the estate single-family residential zoning that is in the city of Sugar Land. This property was platted in 1994 and annexed in 1997, so it does meet that first requirement for the special exception. And they are requesting a rear yard special exception this evening. So a little overview about R1E zoning in the case in particular is that R1E zoning does require a 50-foot rear yard setback. That's in order to create a larger lot. So the minimum lot size is 1.5 acres, and they are supposed to have large estate style lawns on the side setbacks, rears, and front. The recorded restrictions, however, establish a 40-foot rear yard setback. So the proposed addition does meet that 40-yard setback. It's proposed to be approximately 42 feet from the rear property line, but that does mean it will project 8 feet into that required rear yard. So the special exception does relieve the 50-foot setback and allow the, it's not just a patio, it's a patio cover garage and exercise room on the second floor to be constructed. So here's the site plan. This lot is a corner lot. So there is Grand Manor here and then Beacon Hill here. The house kind of wraps and almost has like the corner as the front yard. And then this addition is going to be here at the rear. So the garage, the driveway access off of Beacon Hill, it curves around, and then there would be a garage as well as a patio pavilion cover here. And then the second floor would be a gym or exercise room. Elevations do show that it's enclosed. It's a fairly significant structure there. It's not just a patio cover. It is a full 2-story addition. An excerpt shows some property in the area. So this is the 24 Grand Manor home here, and the addition would be placed approximately here, right at the rear of that home. There are quite a few houses nearby that are also fairly large, just like this one. So it is not out of character. So that's what we looked at in this analysis, is that this does appear to be compatible with the neighborhood. There are approximately 7 homes nearby that do not meet that rear yard setback of 50 feet, given that it is such a large dimension there. There are also 2 approved special exceptions immediately adjacent here and then directly across the street here. This does meet the first 3 standard criteria platted prior to annexations. The recorded restrictions are less restrictive than the zoning, and then the special exception would not be less restrictive than those recorded restrictions. So the 4th criteria, staff does not see any apparent issues with the proposal. Public hearing requirements were all met. Mailers sent out to property owners within 200 feet, and notification was published in the paper and online, as well as a courtesy sign placed on the property. Staff has received no inquiries and is not aware of any opposition to the special exception at this time. Therefore, we do recommend approval of the special exception with the condition that the addition is constructed in accordance with the attached site plan and elevations.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll open the public hearing. Citizens who desire to address the board with regard to matters pertaining to the public hearing will be received at this time. Is there anyone who wants to speak? No? Okay. We close the public hearing. We will now move forward with consideration of an action on a proposed special exception to the rear yard setback for 24 Grand Manor, Lot 2, Block 2, Sweetwater Estates, Section 1, in the Estate Single Family Residential R-1E zoning district. First criteria, the latest recorded plat of the property was approved prior to being annexed into the city. Do we agree that the plat was recorded prior to being annexed?
Yes.
Second criteria, the latest recorded plat or other recorded restriction for the property establishes a setback or other regulation that results in a setback that is less restrictive than the setback required by the City of Sugar Land Development Code, Chapter 2. Do we agree that the recorded restrictions are less restrictive than those established by the City of Sugar Land Development Code?
Yes.
Third criteria, granting the special exception will not establish a setback that is less restrictive than the setback established by the latest approved plat or other recorded restriction. Do we agree that the proposed special exception is not less restrictive than the recorded restrictions?
Yes.
Fourth criteria, granting the special exception will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in the district or neighborhood in which the property is located. Does the board have any questions or comments? No? Okay. Staff has examined the proposed special exception for three key aspects. Number one, public safety review. There does not appear to be any public safety issues associated with this request. Staff has not identified safety concerns as a result of the addition. Number two, rear yard setback comparison. The proposed addition appears to be generally compatible with the neighborhood based on an analysis of the surrounding area. Approximately 7 homes within the immediate area do not meet the rear yard setback requirements of 50 feet. There are 2 approved special exceptions in the immediate area. The proposed addition is in compliance with the recorded restrictions. Number 3, general architectural. The proposed addition appears to be architecturally compatible with the existing single-family residence and neighborhood. If there are no additional comments, can I have a motion to approve or deny the special exception?
I have a motion. I move that the special exception to the rear yard setback requirements in the estate single-family residential R1E district for the property located at 24 Grand Manor, Lot 2, Block 2, Sweetwater Estates, Section 1, be granted with the condition that the addition is constructed in accordance with the attached site plan and elevations.
I have a motion from Mr. Butler. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Mr. James. Can we have a vote, please? His special exception passes unanimously. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
A motion for Mr. Morton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Butler. Let's vote by hand. Motion's approved unanimously.